whatever.
I hope I don't glue to my teeth. That's why oh no!
Like this.
No, why did I say that? That was your fault, Antonette.
Just right there.
Oh yeah, good guys. Okay, I think we're live. I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, we're live.
Welcome everybody. Tonight is going to be something totally unlike what we've ever done before. I'm Retha, for those that doesn't know me, and up over to Antonette.
Hello everyone, Antonette. We love pets, and it's my pleasure to introduce the man from Ireland who basically wrote the book on how to feed dogs, Dr. Conor Brady. Welcome.
Thanks, Antonette. Delighted to be here with you two. It's like you're sitting on a tiny chair, Retha. And there we go. Perfect. Now we are even.
Let you be equal.
Equals. Thanks for having me, guys. I am delighted to be here. Love talking. I'm not even sure what we're talking about, but I'll enjoy it, I'm sure.
Give us a quick quirk for those people that's on that's joining us that does not know and hasn't come across you yet. Who is Dr. Conor Brady?
I was in college for years. I have a PhD. I'm not a vet. I have a PhD studying the effects of nutrition on behavior and guts of mammals. I used deer as my test subject. Then I was in guide dogs for a few years as a trainer and supervisor. And while I was there, then I could see the difference in fresh food in dogs. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to become a raw dog food manufacturer. And so I left the best career on the planet, 24/7, getting paid to walk around with dogs, to the hellish career that is making pet food, as you can greatly understand, Retha. It's a hard job, very, very, very difficult task. And so that was 3 years. And so that was pretty good for the inside to the business. And then I thought, I can start writing about this. And so I started writing long form sciencey articles that were picked up by a few people. And that eventually became the book in 2020. And that worked well, so it turns out that people can really take in, there's a whole big thing about, we shouldn't do our own research, and, the science is just beyond us. That should be left in the hands of the high priests, when clearly that's not the case. The entire kind of public, that book went good for me. So that was good. So that's what I've been doing full time. I've been talking and doing courses and writing stuff and a few bits and bobs on the side for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's what I am. I'm a self-trained canine nutritionist. I don't even know if there's any courses out there that we can do. Is there a course in South Africa for canine nutrition?
There's nothing in South Africa. There's actually across the world. There's not a lot. There's a few. I think I've done them all. Besides the full-on veterinary one that the Chi University.
Please don't do that, Retha. Don't take that on, because you will. You would.
I'm not a vet. I would love to, but I can't. Anyway.
Unencumbered by a veterinary degree is often what I say to my veterinary friends. They don't like that. So,
I'm not. So, Antonette, tell us about how tonight's going to work and play off.
All right, so tonight's going to be a little bit different. We didn't brief Conor, so he's going into this completely blind. Rita's going to give him a word, and Conor, you're going to have 5 minutes to rip into it. You can say nice things, you can rip it, you can do, it's 5 minutes for you. And then 5 minutes are up. Rita's got the gong. And when she hits the gong, we'll go to the next subject. So we're just trying to get in as much of the stuff in your head to get it onto this platform.
Great. Yeah, I talk fast. Right. This will suit me.
That's the other reason why we decided to do it this way.
Yeah, gong is a good idea. Yeah.
Listen, if everybody's got questions, we're going to try and get the questions at the end. Drop your questions in the comments and we'll try and get to them. If we can't get to it live, we will answer it for you in comments. Okay. Conor, ready, steady, go. Kibble.
Oh, listen, Kibble was an invention of the 1950s. It was after the war, and they ran out of tin and they ran out of meat. And Ralston Purina comes along with this idea of grinding up a lot of cereal with some meat flavor, a little bit of meat at the end of it, and turn it into this Kibble product. You might say that the recipe hasn't changed much since 1951. It's still a very, very simple kind of product. And they started selling that for pets. And, you know, that was really the start of issues for pets. We don't have a lot of information before that, tracking illness and stuff, but I blame high carbohydrate kibble for an awful lot of the issues that face pets today. In the 1970s, we had tens of thousands dying for the want of meat, for the want of taurine. That's why you hear cats need taurine in their diet. And actually, cats need meat in their diet, and they stopped putting it in the kibble. And they started getting heart disease, and they started dying of DCM. Still going on today. DCM kills 1 million dogs a year in the US alone. DCM for want of taurine. There's a couple of reasons for that. Lack of taurine in their foods, because if your kibble says with beef, it means 4 to 10% bone meal. So people think beef is like this luxurious muscle meat that goes in, but it's actually meat and bone meal, aka bone meal, the stuff you put in your plants to feed them. So the DCM scandal is still going on. We've had various scandals since then, melamine scandals, SPB, which is sodium pentobarbital, the stuff used to euthanize horses and cats and dogs. 2 of the 5 rendering plants in the US chew up cats and dogs still. And pet food companies have no idea if it goes into the product or not. And you can Google San Francisco Chronicle, New York Times. They've covered it a number of times, dogs eating dogs. So the kibble has major problems, but the biggest problem is they're promoted by the same companies that have woeful reputations for adequate nutrition in humans. Candy companies, you know, so Nestle and Mars and companies that just, you know, you are told not to feed that stuff to your kids as much as possible. And here we are being told it's the only complete food for pets. They've never made a complete food for humans. They got close to it with bottled milk, but didn't cut the mustard. It's not as good as breast milk. They're not allowed to advertise it as that. Doesn't stop the same companies promoting it as the best in countries that don't have tight regulation. So it shows what these companies are still willing to do. When they've been told not to do it, they're still promoting their complete formulas for humans over breast milk in countries that don't have the same regulation as we do. So can you imagine what they're prepared to do when they're making pet food? So I think it's a big problem that they pump their resources into the veterinary industry. They give a lot of the lectures. We've all the freedom of information requests to show that. And the vets come out trumpeting the words of, you know, Ronald McDonald. And so it's a big problem. The vets mean well. It's not their fault. It's a fault of regulation, and it's cash owned by the companies that make the chemical parasite control and all the useless stuff that we are using too much of. Not all chemical parasite control is useless. So we have a big problem with that. And then they corrupt the data. And so that's what my book was about, is like looking at the studies that support dry pet food and go, there must be buckets of studies to show this is good for cats and dogs. Otherwise, the evidence-based veterinary sector wouldn't have gone for it. So I just went through all the studies and said, give me a look at the study that shows high carbohydrate diets are good for dogs with cancer, are good for dogs with obesity, are good for pancreatitis, kidney disease. It's the absolute opposite. The data is all screaming the opposite. We've known for 30 years that it's high carbohydrate diets fuel them pancreatitis, bloat, kidney disease. You're supposed to feed them more protein. So how do these products still exist? How are they allowed to use the word prescription on the front still? It's an illegal use of the term. So we have major problems in the kibble industry. And I think times are changing, though. I think the advance of social media, fresh pet food companies is now dominating the markets. Kibble's taking a battering, and so is veterinary reputations. And so we need to knit that up a bit, because we need vets and we need them back. And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of extend a hand over the bridge now and say, listen, you know, there's plenty of much better products out there, safe, well made, and Retha is making them. So it's like, you can feel it changing now. Vets are under pressure. They're corporate owned. Vets are miserable, working long hours. They're not paid enough money for the amount of work they had to do to get there. They're heavily stressed. And that's a big problem. And now pet owners are coming in better versed than they are in many of the topics. They are trying to, as they say, pet owners aren't picking up what vets are putting down anymore. You know, flea treatments for dogs with no fleas, you know, annual vaccinations for already adequately vaccinated pets. It's just like, you don't get your MMR jab every year. Oh, that was pretty good. I was only warming up.
Wow.
That's a big marathon. So now, Antonette, have you got something to add or to ask on that?
I think the one thing that stuck out for me is just how they have the whole chain, like these companies, these candy companies, because now they're going into diagnostics, they're going into the veterinary, they're owning the vets, and they're owning the food. So they're prescribing the food to the sick pet that they've made sick, and they're getting the cost And I think that's something that we really need to kind of just wake up to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. They get it at both ends. More than happy to own both ends of the business. I think it's 50%. Mars, 50% of Mars's gross revenue is the pet industry at the moment. They bought out Banfield. They bought out all the huge chains, all the diagnostics. They own it all. So it's a very tight and closed circuit. But yeah, that's a big one for sure.
Retha?
So if Kibble is doing all that, let's talk about what we're seeing, what happens in the body, in our pets. And so that brings us to the next word, Conor, cancer.
God. After being around a few people with cancer over the last year, I have picked up dozens of leaflets from various oncology wards, and the nutritional advice coming out of those wards is dire. It's absolutely terrible. People going through various treatments and just eat what you want for energy is a various phrase I've heard a few times from people. It is absolutely crazy that today it seems the only option for people that have really aggressive cancer is heavy treatments. The nutrition, any like medicinal mushrooms, seaweed, thousands of studies in support of seaweed and medicinal mushrooms and those sort of compounds we've heard of, turmeric. If you go into ChatGPT, you will get literally thousands of really well constructed studies. But the drugs we use have 1 or 2 studies produced by the manufacturers themselves. They have big problems. So if this is how dire the information is in the human realm, can you imagine the state of cancer advice in the pet realm? So it is absolutely chronic. The idea, like the French are pushed this the new way of gauging foods and their qualities with four grades. I can't remember the name of the plan, but we met them up in Helsinki. And the fact is, ultra processed food it fuels cancer in humans. The more ultra processed food you eat, the more cancer you get. So how the hell is ultra processed food not cancerous in pets, cats, and dogs? The same issues are there: high carbohydrate diets, spiking insulin. You've got like when you do a PET scan, you have to drink a sugary drink and they radioactive tag it, and the tumors light up because they want the insulin as a growth hormone. So we know you have to drop the carbohydrates when you've got most cancers, not every single one of them, but for most, you don't want to be on a high carbohydrate diet at all. You want to be feeding good quality lean protein, get that lean muscle mass up. You're in for a fight. So this is a meat eater. This is a protein and fat eating machine. At what point do you consider carbohydrates useful for this animal? Certainly not when he was healthy. But you're telling me they're useful when he's got cancer. There is a small bit of evidence that should suggest that dogs that lower their carbohydrates benefit, but we don't even have studies on that to back that up. So they don't do the studies. We are at want for that. Then there's fresh fats, chemical preservatives for the gut flora, poor quality fats and seed oils and all the other junk vegan pet food. There is so many issues with you've got mycotoxins, which are the most cancerous natural substances on earth. Over 50% of cereal-based pet foods contain them. Like various, more agents than the FBI, as they say. You've got plastic leaching into the products. You've just got ages, Maillard reaction particles are rife in ultra-processed food. Like, honestly, there's 10, 20 cancerous causing substances in it. So how can that possibly be better than fresh food for the pet? There is not a single jot of evidence for that. There's a absolute raft of circumstantial evidence to suggest the opposite is very, very important. People need to switch on very, very quickly if they get a pet with cancer. And I honestly, hand on heart, you need to get them off kibble. I don't care how good the kibble is. You've got to get them on fresh food, fresh fats, lean protein, grass-fed meat. You've got to look at all that. You've got to look at your omega-6-3 profile, which means, jacking up your omega-3 and watching what other seed oils are sneaking in. There's so many things. And then looking at herbs and looking at all the treatments that complement a normal cancer treatment. So you can go through cancer treatment, but you'll be far more robust. Does that not sound like a good plan? Can you do some liver support and kidney support? I mean, de-stressing, do anything else as well as your conventional treatment. Don't just rely on that, because cut, burn, poison takes a terrible toll on the body. And there are so many things in the kind of natural realm that can help. So unfortunately, we just don't have big studies comparing raw and dry fed dogs. Those studies are very, very expensive, and you can sure as hell kibble companies won't do them because they don't want the answer. So who's going to pay for those studies? This is the big problem we have. We can do small circumstantial studies of 6 or 8 dogs here and there, a couple of owner studies. They're easy to do. Cancer studies won't get over the mark, let alone with the journals publish them. We have a big problem at the moment with the 2 or 3 groups that are publishing proper canine nutrition studies, they can't get them into journals. They're queued up and they're waiting. So we have a massive problem in human medicine with cancer, and I would say it's a big industry. It is the biggest industry, and the drugs for that industry are just absolute cash cows. One more really interesting study. Of the 26 top-selling drugs for cancer, they could repeat the studies 5 times out of 26. The published studies supporting the top 26 cancer drugs, they could repeat 5 of those studies. The rest of the results they couldn't repeat. That's how well they rigged those trials to get those cancer patients in. They choose healthy young people that they know the prognosis will be good, put them through the trial, and look how well we do compared to the average. So it's major problems. Can you imagine how bad it is in pets, you know?
Yeah.
Studies say about 1 in 1.6 dogs get cancers.
It's ridiculous. 10 times more cancer than humans, and they don't have any cigarettes.
Yeah.
How?
Absolutely. And I think it's also, I mean, it's a creation of absolute chronic inflammation because of diet. And the diet cancelling for me is a no-brainer. But then vets still makes the comments and say there's not enough studies out there to support raw food and the benefit that it's got. Or fresh food.
Yeah.
Which is
That line,
really
that line is odious. There's not enough studies. I say, well, show me the studies that support the use of your product for dogs with cancer, or even healthy dogs. I put out a €10,000 reward for 4 years on my Facebook page for a single study that shows Kibble's good for anything. One thing. Wow. That's all you had to do. Not a single study was shown to me over 4 years. Isn't that crazy? No benefits.
That is absolutely great.
But we have to have all the data. We must do studies to show what they think is wrong. They've taken their leap in dogma. It's very hard to shift that person with data, because because you have a whole ego, you have a whole thing based on, well, I'm here and I can't be wrong, and so you cannot move people with data. You can only move them with emotion and stories when they're in dogma land. And vets don't want to accept that, but that's where they are. You are supporting a product with zero evidence behind it, but you want me to have the evidence. It's not fair.
Yeah,
Connor, can I just ask you, sorry, Retha, just one quick question. We're seeing the dogs younger and younger, they're getting cancer, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And someone once made a comment to me and said that it's going to take 6 generations to clear through the cancer in the dogs. I don't know, what does that mean? Does it mean that because of all the kibble fed dogs, like the mum before, all that kibble, is this kind of compounding?
Yeah, that is a sad thing to consider. I haven't thought about that. Epigenetics, that is. It's the switching on and off genes, and that you can pass that on to your kids. And they have looked at that a lot. So many studies of kids born to certain mums and to certain situations, stress, times of the year, born into famine, born into plenty, born into darkness, born into light. So you definitely do pass these things on. Do you pass on a disease state like that? I would say 95% of cancer is environmental, at least. It used to be 80, now it's 90, now it's 95. They pour money into genes because it distracts you. They want you talking about genetic research, but they don't want you talking about the environmental factors that cause it. I would have thought that if a puppy was born into a regime where the environmental factors, the cancerous ones, are removed, I would have thought you'd make massive leaps and bounds. But yeah, I bet he would be more prone to some of the issues. We see that in some breeds. There is a breed effect for cancers for sure. But then, we also know that we can greatly increase that, like Rotties, neutering Rotties. Who would have thought 4 times the risk of osteosarcoma if you take his nuts off? So there's so many things that we do. The idea of passing on to generations honestly saddens me. I never thought about that, but still, I think genes load the gun and environment pulls the trigger. So just because you're born with the genes doesn't mean you're going to get that cancer. So I really hope that most of the damage can be undone in a generation, but I'd hate to think of it any other way,
Thanks.
Okay, guys, let's lift the mood a little bit and let's talk about something all dogs love. Connor, next word, bones. Go.
Bones. Oh, I love talking about bones. Everyone's terrified of bones. Raw, meaty bones we're talking about here, guys. As Billy Hurst said in 91, raw, meaty bones is where it's at. And I remember feeding my first one. I remember looking at my dog going, I hope this goes well, or my mum will kill me. So that was 20 years ago with her German Shepherd. And all went well. and her teeth were nice and clean till the day she died. But so raw meaty bones are fab, and people think they just clean the teeth, and they do safely. The first study done on that was 1965 by Brown and Park, I think it was, in 65. They did a study of 200 beagles, and they followed them for 6 years. They fed them oxtail. So these are hard bones from a cow. So the bigger the beast, the harder the bones, you know. So chickens are dead at 10, 11 weeks. So their bones are very soft and full of water, very malleable. I mean, even a fresh chicken bone is kind of bendy. But by the time you get to be a pig or a cow, you're much bigger and older when you're dead. So those bones are much harder. So a beef bone is a bit of work. You need to be a serious eater for that. But these guys fed beagles, 200 beagles, oxtail beef bones for 6 years, and they found 0 issues in 200 dogs. And it's like, people will say that's from the 60s, that's not from today. And it's go, what has changed about dogs in the last 4? Those studies are relevant. It's just, they're just old. They're just so they've done another study in 2016 and found the same thing. They found that 2 feeds removes 85% of the tartar off their teeth. It's the last little bits that are hard to get off, you know, the tops of the canines and stuff that you have to work on if you've neglected them. So you need to clean their teeth. Clean teeth are absolutely pivotal to their health. People don't understand. They think it's just a foul mouth, but it's a massive immune response when those bacteria get to the gums. It's a huge draw on resources. You're far more prone to disease, heart disease from the invading bacteria. You get kidney disease because of the cleaning up the immune debris, but also moving pathogens. So it aggravates a whole heap of different things. So a foul mouth is a big problem. So cleaning up with raw meaty bones. I think dentistry is the number 3 income earner for vets. So, you know, they dental scrape anesthetics. Who wants that? Just give them raw meaty bones. They cost absolutely nothing. So I'm a big fan of bones, and they don't just clean the teeth. They're mineral sinks. That's where your dog gets their manganese, and, you know, you find copper and you find all sorts of cool things in the bone. It's also glucosamine and chondroitin. Where else are you going to get that? You're going to wait until your Labrador is walking like a coffee table or rigid at 5 years old, and then you're giving them, what do you give them? Ground up cartilage in a capsule. So you just feed them that stuff, and you don't need to buy those stupid glucosamine and chondroitin tablets. That's a typical veterinary solution. Cut out the nutrient that they need when they're young, and then when they get arthritis, give them the nutrient then. It's like, no, you need these nutrients all the time. You need coenzyme Q10 all the time. Don't just wait until you're sick and take these things. So they're mineral sinks. Dogs love to chew. Their heart rate decreases. It releases serotonin in carnivores when they eat meat and bone. Pigs get something to chew in bloody sheds. I mean, parrots pull out their feathers. We chew our fingernails. Chewing is something you need to do. Why give out to the dog for chewing your table leg? You could have been having a nice raw meaty bone. So what else are they good for? Clean the teeth. A bit of roughage in the diet is good. You know, we eat. I think that there's probably more to bones than we think, but a bit of roughage and helping the poo form and that kind of stuff. Fresh calcium as opposed to calcium carbonate in your dry food, which is limestone. Studies of calcium carbonate in humans show it's very poorly absorbed. Nothing compares to fresh calcium in your diet, and that's where your dog gets it from. So if you want robust joints and bones, you have to feed joint and bone material. And that comes in the raw dog food that you feed, so you don't even have to think about it. So we don't have a huge amount of evidence for that. There was a study of 237 German Shepherds by Helsinki University, and they showed that it massively decreased the incidence of chronic hip dysplasia, feeding meat with bone in their diet. So I bet that's the case. I can only assume that having the right material and building blocks given to you as a young one is a good idea, because being starved for them is certainly a bad idea. So massive fan of bones. My favorite one is probably a duck neck. I have a Cocker Spaniel. He's a vicious chewer. He's not vicious. He's a savage chewer. He just wants to eat and chew all the time. So that's my favorite raw meaty bone. Necks are my favorite. Duck necks, turkey necks. Turkey necks are like a large steak with a few bones going through. What a cut of meat. So I love them. If I had a larger dog, if I had a little Ridgie or something like that at home, having a little German Shepherd, I'd go bigger. Yeah. Bloody hell.
You're doing well, Conor.
Yeah. Antonette, have you got some stuff that you want to wrap up with about bones? So when we tell our vets we feed bones and raw meat, we usually get this look. So, and that brings me to the next question and the next phrase. Your vet's nutrition training. Conor, go.
Your vet's nutrition training. Okay. Vets will strongly deny this. They get very, very insulted when you say this, but vets are not adequately trained in nutrition. And they can deny that all they like, but the studies show that's absolutely the case. There's been large reviews by, what was it? I think it was 67 deans of veterinary universities, where they interview them and ask them, nutrition is one of the 5 pillars of health in veterinary. You're supposed to spend 20% of your time on it. And they don't. And so the deans across the board, across Europe anyway, said, we have a major problem here. We don't learn much about nutrition. We wished we would learned more about nutrition. When Marge, what's her name? I always forget her second name. I think her name is actually Marjorie Nestle. I think she's a very strong advocate, nothing to do with Nestle, over in the US. I think it was her. She approached this 27 veterinary departments in the US. 22 of the 27 offered 0 nutritional lectures. 0. 22 of the 27. And I'm sure the vets that would go to those schools would deny that. And sometimes they confuse things and say, well, you know, they look back on their time in 5 years and say they learned something about vitamin C. You know, that's useful in whatever, insert disease. It's like, that's not really studying nutrition though, is it? Like, that's the kind of, it's like the pointy end of using nutrients for X and Y, but it's not learning about how food is made or the dramatic effects it has on pretty much all the chronic diseases. You know, you eat your way into most chronic diseases today. When you look at the top diseases killing humans, from cancer to heart disease to, you know, whatever the third one is, you eat your way in, diabetes type 2, and you eat your way out. But a GP, a general practitioner today, couldn't tell you that. They couldn't give you any dietary advice to get you out of your heart condition. They're still telling you to stop eating saturated fat. You know, it's just crazy. They bought and sold, like they swallowed every single silly bit of nonsense in the meantime. So the veterinary issue with nutrition is a big, big problem. And then they say, okay, what we do is those that realize they don't know anything about nutrition, you should only talk to a veterinary nutritionist. And you're like, word, veterinary nutritionist? There's only 30 in the US. You know, so 90 million dogs and 80 million cats, 170 million pet owners can only talk to 30 people. I said, do you understand what sort of a workload is? Like, I mean, and can you think of any diseases they would have? And they charge €400 or €500 an hour. What are you talking about? Of course, you can't get to a veterinary nutritionist, but that sort of bottleneck is heavily promoted. It's like you should only talk to a veterinary nutritionist. Who talks to a dietitian when they've got a nutritional issue? You just don't go to a doctor at all, because they're not going to give you the advice you need. You go to somebody that studies nutrition, you know, and it takes 4 or 5 years in college to get the basics right. You know, that's why we have various disciplines in college and all around nutrition. There's food scientists and dietitians and all sorts. So I think they have a big misunderstanding of how big the subject is. And then they say, you know, if there was more evidence and you show them the evidence, that's not enough evidence. I wish it was better evidence. It's exhausting, you know, and if somebody would write a book and then you write the book that's, you know, 1,200 studies in it that examines their science and ours and presents it to them, and then they won't read it. So, and then they see you as a little bit antagonistic. And so that's a bit difficult. I've been trying to get into the veterinary departments and do a few lectures, and but it's hard, you know, the candy companies sponsor the veterinary departments, and so you're kept out from doing the lectures. If you want to know what candy company sponsors your local veterinary department, just ring them up and ask them what dry food they sell. Do you ever wonder why they don't sell more than one brand? Because that's the part of the deal. So yeah, so it's a big, big problem. And I do remember giving my first canine nutrition lecture in Australia. I just wrote this a few weeks ago and told people. And a representative from Mars Royal Canin came up to me. I think it was Mars, it wasn't Hills, was it? It was Mars. And she was flown in from the other side of Australia to attend my lecture. And she came up because Murdoch University is the biggest veterinary department in the Southern Hemisphere. And she came up the first time a canine nutrition lecture had ever been given to the public in Perth in Australia. And she came up and she shook my hand just before I went on stage and said, good luck with your lecture. I'm from Mars Royal Canin. And she sat down in the front row. And then I had to give my 3 or 4 hours of canine nutrition. Can you imagine how much I shit my pants when I heard that? And so I thought that was a bad time to do it. I would never talk to you guys before you went up on stage. I'd leave you alone. And so I think I actually have her name because I still have the ticket stub that I gave her. And so it is what is learned in colleges is very, very poor. I actually went to Murdoch University at the time and said, hey, who's your nutrition vet? I want to talk to them, because I totally at the time thought everything was au fait and above board. And let's go for it. Let's talk, because I'm a scientist and you're a scientist. It's going to be great. And like, damn, I had to put in front of a guy that just knew absolutely nothing. He held up the Small Animal Clinical Nutrition, SACN, and he holds it and goes, have you read that, son? Massive book. And I said, I have, yeah. I said, you know, that's written by Hill's Pet Food. And he's like, so? So what? He didn't care that it was a Hills pet. It was like reading Ronald McDonald literature inside McDonald's. And I said, well, it's one side of the story. I said, but have you read any other books besides Ronald McDonald's How to Eat Burgers and Chips book? Like, so that's where we are. And it's not getting up to speed. Nothing's changed in veterinary in the last few years, sadly. So yeah, it's a constant issue, that one.
Maybe, Conor, just one tip for our listeners, how to bridge that gap with the vets.
I don't know if I'm your man.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I got the question there, Antonette. Yeah, are you freezing or am I? I think it might be you. I got the question. I got the question. How to bridge the gap with the vets is, they are slowly coming around. There's more and more people joining the Raw Feed and Veterinary Society. There's more vets in my membership, I can see. And we're chatting young vets particularly because they're on social media. They cannot avoid the fact that, kibble sales are plummeting and fresh and raw food sales are increasing, and clients are coming in and they want to know this information. So they will be badgered into submission. You would have thought or hoped that the veterinary departments would have come before that, but there's just too much money involved. So, but the young vets will change that. The change happens from the ground up, So it'll be the young vets looking at stuff online going, oh yeah, how is kibble good for teeth? When the only study shows us kibble's bad for teeth. There's no evidence showing that kibble is superior to fresh food for teeth. And they'll look at this evidence and go, where are the studies? They're not thick. So I think the change will come from the young vets. We talk to them and they're afraid to speak out in college. There might be only one or two of them in the class and they don't want to say, I don't really agree with what you're saying there. And so I think they'll come, and I think the younger vets will change it. But once they work for a corporation, they have to be very careful. They won't have their own opinions too easy. So it's a slow change. I hoped it was quicker, but it's surprisingly slow.
Yeah. So I think it is difficult, and it's a difficult environment out there for our pet parents. It's challenging, and not everybody has got the force and the confidence to address their dogs, address their vets about their dogs or cats' diet. So maybe let's visit our clients something that they can do and start with tomorrow. Omega-3. Conor, let's go.
Omega-3 is literally the only supplement that I give myself. My wife always says, if only they could see you now when I'm eating something that I shouldn't be eating. So omega-3 is the only thing that I sneak into the kids' food. D3 as well, because we don't get any sunshine, and some vitamin and some omega-3. So I love it. But I do need to highlight that a lot of the supplements are a bit dodgy. So most of the studies would agree with this figure. 1 in 2 are at their point of oxidization. So your fish oil capsules, for example, 1 in 2 are at their point of oxidization, meaning you have a 50% chance of eating the capsule that will take more from your body in harm than it'll give you in good. So that's 1 in 2. So that the 50% figure is interesting, and that's across most warm countries, most Western countries that aren't in the North Pole or something like that. And 1 in 10 are positively toxic. So plastic is breathable. It lets oxygen in unbelievably. And we crack the top and we don't use them over the course of months. And the air, fat just hates being outside the body. So the very best omega-3 comes from the animal itself. So you've got your sardines and your small oily fish. But all that omega-3 actually comes from the algae that they eat. They don't generate that fat themselves. They eat algae. And then the small oily fish get oily. And then some predators eat a lot of oily fish and they get oily. So that's how that works. And so one of my favorite omega-3 supplements is actually algal oil. And they grow them in these unbelievable farms, hermetically grown in these glass tubes. You get this pink and cyan and all these amazing colors out into the desert. And it's a very clean omega-3. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a lot of good quality omega-3 for the amount of money you spend. Because what some of these companies do, they say even larger capsule for just 20% more. And you go, ooh, larger capsule. But they don't give you more omega-3. They just give more filler oil in the back of it. They can put sugar. They can put all sorts of things in those capsules. So the omega-3 actual supplement industry has a few holes in it, but it's better than nothing. And another deceptive one is that grass-fed animals are really high in omega-3. So your dogs would have enough from eating lamb and beef and venison and everything else that you eat outside. But our intensively reared birds are coming with a lot of omega-6 because they're fed wheat and corn, stuff that they're not supposed to eat really. That's not really what they live on, but they're forced to live on that today. And that means their fat is very high in omega-6. So when we test that meat, like I love chicken thighs for Duddy, it's my favorite cut, but I pull the fat off the outside of it. That chicken thigh is 15 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. So between 10 to 15 parts omega-6, that's unheard of. It would never be like that if it was reared normally. And that's very inflammatory. They say you shouldn't be over 5 to 1. So you want to get your omega-6 content down. So the problem we have is that, a lot of raw dog foods up here are made in chicken, duck, and turkey. I feed them to duds. But it means that that fat sneaks in there, and it's not the fat you want. You want animal fat, you want omega-3 and all that good stuff. So yes to animal fat, yes to outdoor reared animals as much as possible. If you're feeding a lot of intensely reared birds, I'd jack up the omega-3 in your dog, and so you can measure those things in your dog, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that is what I have to say about omega-3. It is one of the most important things. It's the central part of the Mediterranean diet, And so when we wonder how well these bloody Mediterraneans are doing it, omega-3 is a big, big part of it. So we eat too much omega-6 today, not enough omega-3. And so wonderfully beneficial for your dog and cat, and they are meat eaters. They eat wild fat all the time, so they have a very low 6-3 profile. That's one thing that they don't tell you on the label. The pet foods, dry pet food companies, you can't even email them and get that information out of them. Vegan pet foods don't have any animal fat in there at all, so they supplement with a bit of algal oil, and so they put algal oil on the label, but there wouldn't be a hair's worth of algal oil in there because it's such an expensive ingredient to put in there. So what vegan pet foods are doing, they're just using seed oil, sunflower oil, and all the other junk. And so that's the oil that vegan fed dogs are getting. Very high 6-3 profiles. Would love to see the cancer studies. But so the omega-3 bit is an easy thing to do for you and the dogs and the cats. And most the supplements are better than nothing, I suppose, but I'd go for good quality one in a brown jar in the fridge, get them eaten in a week by small amounts, algal oil. Vegan omega-3, okay. Yeah, okay. You're back, Antonette.
Yes, it happens all the time. Everyone's used to it, but I just disappear.
Okay, yeah, I'm going
African signals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
so I think so. Basically, from what I'm getting,
I think she's frozen up again.
Yeah.
So basically, I think are you back? So I would say if someone could afford only one supplement for their dog, this should be the sorry.
That sounds
this
very
should
nice.
be the supplement. No, this is not even a phone, it's an alarm that goes off.
Okay, all right. That sounds very pleasant. Yeah.
This should be if you can only afford one supplement in your dog's food bowl, this is one thing that I would really recommend people do and look at is an omega-3. I believe the more natural you can do, the better. I think omega-3 is really, really important.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite too. So simple. You can get it in the supermarket pretty cheap. A lot of brands charge too much for what you're getting, but all you want is that EPA DHA. And so you'll see in a 1 gram capsule that it'll say 100 milligrams of EPA and 200 milligrams of DHA. So all you want is that 300 milligrams of good stuff, and the other 700 milligrams isn't what you're after. So they do concentrated forms of fish oil capsules now, which is even better. But I do wonder about the refining process. But anyway, don't overthink.
So, and then from a raw manufacturer's point of view, my point of view, if you cannot afford it, because it can be quite expensive to get a good quality, then you add the sardines, the sprats, the mackerel, the salmon, and mussels, and that is omega bombs. Really, my dogs don't get anything else but that. I give them some spirulina and some chlorella to add on to that. Yeah, and in South Africa, we're really very privileged because we are allowed to feed brain matter in our food. We can do that.
Look at you! More than not.
It's not something that you get in other countries. So the EPA and DHA comes from brain matter. So guys, chicken heads, duck heads, not the dried and the dehydrated ones, the raw ones. Absolutely the best that you can give to your dogs.
Yeah, that's a great one. Oh, I love that.
So now we've been talking about omega-3s, and now I'm going to go on to a very touchy other subject, and we're speaking about heart health. So what we add to the bowl, grain-free, DCM. Conor, go.
Oh, God. That scandal is a proper scandal of the way they managed that. Lisa Freeman is the name of the scientist. She comes from the University of Guelph, I think it is. University of Guelph, I think it is, in the US. And Lisa Freeman is sponsored by dry pet food companies to produce studies. And that's not to say what she's producing is true or false. I haven't slighted her character at all. But in 2013, she wrote the most shared pet health study ever. It had 80,000 shares in the first year it came out, which is unheard of. And it was the benefits and the pros and cons of fresh feeding pets was the name of it. And of course, there was about that much on pros, and then there was just all the cons and all the usual nonsense she trumpeted out. And that study is very well shared by the veterinary community still, despite all the data that's come out since and a lot of the issues that she said in that study. And then she did it again. She managed to do it again. This time she highlighted the very worrying situation where grain-free pet food was causing DCM in pets. Now, remember, cereal-based pet food was killing tens of thousands of pets in the 70s by not having enough taurine in their food or too much plant fiber, which stops the carnivore being able to reabsorb its bile. So it was one of those two reasons, but whatever. They were doing it, cereal-based pet food in the 70s, and nothing has changed since for them. There's still 1 million pets a year dying of DCM in the US, and that was before grain-free pet food even took off. So who was killing them all then? So to say that cereal-based pet food is out of the loop is a bit disingenuous. So they also, through the 600 cases they picked, when there's 1 million pets dying a year, they picked these 600 cases. Why did they pick these 600 cases? They were all eating grain-free pet food. They named the companies involved without it. Oh my God, that was too short.
No, that is not carry on.
Yeah.
Gone wrong.
Gone wrong. Yeah. But so they named the studies involved. They named the companies involved without a jot of evidence, and they threw them under the bus. And the FDA named the companies involved. Now, they didn't do that in 2006 when the melamine scandal was killing thousands of pets. They wouldn't name the cereal-based pet food companies involved, but they named these grain food companies. And grain-free pet food took a hammering. Now you might wonder, okay, who cares? You know, the point is grain-free pet food is in the natural pet food category, and it was streaming ahead in sales from 2013. And this was about 2015, 16. They started putting on the pressure. They started coming up with these worrying links by scientists like Lisa Freeman and a few others, Stern and a few others, writing these erroneous papers. They made the link, and they never found the link at all. They just said, as in a study to come, we're going to show you the link, was one of the lines they're using. So there was a really big problem with the information that came out. The scientists never found any definite links, and the FDA had to retract what they said about these companies, but the damage was done. Grain-free pet food sales fell the very next year. And it was interesting that the dogs were called off. Okay, they stopped incriminating grain-free pet food. They hadn't a jot of evidence to say this was the issue. And the very next month, the FDA stopped accusing the grain-free pet food companies of being the main issue, because they're as guilty of it as cereal-based pet food, by the way. They don't use a lot of meat either. And they also use too much plant fiber. So, like, you know, I'm not to say grain-free pet food wasn't guilty. I don't know. But the FDA called off the dogs in, I think it was October. And then Mars bought Champion Pet Foods a month later. And Champion Pet Foods are the very biggest grain-free pet food producers on the planet. They make Origin, which is the world's best-selling natural pet food, and they also own. They also make 2 or 3 other top brands. Mars bought it for a lovely little sum, because you can imagine the damage that was done to their industry. And so you might say that's conspiratorial. I would say it's incredible timing. Why would the FDA work with cereal-based pet foods so closely? Why? How do these scientists suddenly appear and produce these papers that are just in the bin? You know, they're just totally unfair on the grain food companies, because cereal-based pet food is the dustbin for the human food industry. You have billions of tons of leftover meat going into pet food, 4D meat, dead, diseased, dying, disabled. They can chew up that rotten meat and use it in Kibble in the US. They can use restaurant waste. They can use things like beef pulp and leftovers from the food processing industry, grade 2 grain that you can't sell to humans. All that crap can go into cereal-based pet food, and if it didn't, they'd have to pay to dump it. So the meat industry is very incentivized to sell this poor quality meat to the rendering industries. The grain industry is involved, and the FDA and the USDA are involved. They are all in together to make a very profitable product from what is a waste product. And people don't want to accept that, but that was an absolute scandal, and I feel sorry for the grain food, pet food companies that were involved. But there was other levels to that as well. I just don't want to incriminate myself by throwing the scientists under the bus, but very, very unfair and a deeply erroneous paper that they used to do it. Not fair.
It's all about pulling the strings and the puppeteers.
That's it. It's a fact. It's all about the money. That's the way it is. It's so sad. And they don't get to the bottom of the DCM issue. They can't seem to stop that. That just keeps on happening as if it's normal for dogs and cats to have heart issues as bad as that. It's like it's just chronic. Oh boy, we're not seeing any DCM in we're not seeing a whole heap of it in raw fed dogs. I shouldn't say we're not seeing any. There are many diseases that have dropped off we're not seeing hardly any bloat. There's a veterinary group in UK with 32 raw feeding vets in it. No bloat. Very little kidney disease, hardly any pancreatitis. They're just not seeing these cases anymore. Not to say they're not going to happen, but very rare. I think he said he saw one bloat case in 4 years. And it's like, that's amazing when 1 in 10 purebred dogs are going to suffer. So it's that DCM thing really, really bothers me because of the way they just use the science and then the vets just regurgitate what they read in this makeshift paper. And very, very, very clever move by the cereal-based pet food industry.
Marketing campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're with us, Antonette, so I'm sure you've got something to share your side. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm here. I'm that saying, Conor, you won't know it because it's in Afrikaans, my back on whip. I'm just so, it's
like the genie in Aladdin.
Just eating the stuff.
Yeah.
We're just accepting the information that's given to us because it comes from a guy in a coat.
That's right. Yeah.
And now we just don't question it, and we just need to ask better questions.
Yeah, it's not fair. The poor, we're fairly clued in, but the poor old pet owners haven't a hope. People going to the GP, people going to the vets, they just completely hand over every health decision to them, and they don't come with any questions. They don't even use ChatGPT when they come out. I mean, who doesn't do that today? Now they've got a new little thing about the size of a credit card, and it's essentially like a AI in your pocket, like a ChatGPT in your pocket. But within a year, I would predict within a year, people are going to have their ChatGPT on the table or whatever AI you like to use, Claude or whatever, because it just records. And you say, do you mind if I record the meeting? Why would you mind that? There was a big study out of doctors using AI and from printed information. So in an ER room where the person comes in with all the documents, the nurses' reports and the doctors' reports, and they give it to the top doctors, which are these emergency room doctors. Without using AI, doctors are about 55% likely to diagnose the issue just from reading all the reports. Using AI, they were something like 65% likely to hit the reports on improvement. And the AI doing it by itself was over 90%. So it was like, you're not even talking about doctors using AI. Now it's like you don't want the doctor involved in a lot of, now you do want doctors involved for a lot of different decisions. I mean, Jesus, I don't want this to be picked up like, oh, hail my great AI overlords. But it's coming, and it's going to really help a pet owner who doesn't have the, what's the word? They have the smarts. It's just, it's tough to challenge someone in a white coat if you feel a little bit underconfident. But if the ChatGPT is there and just recording the whole information, you can just come out afterwards and it can just diagnose. It can just not diagnose. It can criticize what was said and give you some alternative ideas. Criticize the studies they said did this and that, and then you can email the clinic later and go, I actually disagree with 3 of the things that doctor said. Could you just help me with these 3 points and just show me that study you said that where the high carbohydrate diet was good for a dog with pancreatitis? Could you show me the study when you said that now, please? And so that is where we're going with health, because people aren't able to defend themselves so easy, particularly if they have a bad diagnosis. They get scared, and then you absorb, you treat your doctor like God, and that's a big mistake, not to go around getting second opinions.
And it's a very emotional thing. Our pets are very emotional to us. And, I know when I'm in the vet's office and they start saying these big words, and my head just shuts down. You're just like, oh no. So it's very scary and it's very intimidating, and it's difficult for the pet.
Yeah, it is. It's an emotional thing, isn't it? And it's and you feel like it's embarrassed. Yeah, go on. I'm done.
Totally. Okay, so I'm gonna the last one, and this has got a little bit of a local angle. And wrapping up everything that we said is, and unfortunately, we won't be blessed with your presence this year, but
No.
the last one, let's land it. African pet health. Go, Conor.
African pet health. All I can talk about is last year, really. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I'm absolutely gutted. You know, there's probably 3 things that I do. You get to, luckily, you know, probably not as much anymore, but certainly the last 5 or 6 years have been good since the book came out. You get to do some speaking engagements, and I love them. And so that is great. And you get to go around, you meet awesome people and make some pals. But, you know, there is ones that you prefer to do. And obviously, you know, South Africa is going to be something you want to do. I've probably got 3. I like going to Ruby in San Diego. I like going to the University of Helsinki because Anna's there. And I like going down to South Africa because Retha and Xander were there. So we had 7 days of just heaven down there. And so, yeah, it was brilliant. Also, very clued in people as well. I think the days of having a non-clued in audience are over. It used to be like, here's how to make dog treats. You know, fresh food isn't dangerous. It's just not like that anymore. And so I thought that we brought some really good content last year, but it wasn't like they weren't able for it. And so it just shows how strong the movement is there. So it was a really good thing. So we were struck by the fact that if you were to do it again, you'd have to ramp it up a little bit and really come with more nitty gritty. So that was our conclusion as we were coming away. So absolutely loved it. I loved it. It was a great spread, and it was a gorgeous area. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. Are you going to do the 2 this year, Retha, or are you just going to do one city?
We're just doing one city this year. We're going to start alternating. So we're doing just one city so that we've got more concentration. So it's 3 days, 1 day just for vets and a vet-focused group, and then the 2 days for vets and pet parents. Yeah, and we've got some amazing speakers lined up. And
everyone's going.
What I'd like to ask you is, why would you say pet parents need to come to this?
Yeah, like, you know, whatever about the knowledge and kind of meeting these people that you see online, and like you know, people, you have to bring your A game when you're coming to these, and coming back to reference my first point, like, and so you are hearing really, really new solid information. Everyone's, particularly when we're all meeting up and speaking at the same time, it puts you on edge. It's like, oh, Judy Morgan's going to be there and Nick's speaking. Nick puts me on edge, which keeps you good. So the talks are going to be very, very good. But that aside, there is just a very nerdy buzz in just getting among people that are interested in the same thing you are. You know, because sometimes you can feel like a little bit of an outlier screaming into the darkness on Facebook, and it's lonely, and, you know, everyone thinks you're weird in your friendship group, but you're not weird. Well, you probably are weird, but come meet other weirdos in the African Pet Health Summit. No, but it is it's the camaraderie of it, and you make a lot of connections as well. You know, so most people that are in this, there's an awful lot of canine nutritionists and people operating on the fringes of pet health. That's where I put us. But you need to get there, and you need to make friends, and you need to meet the producers, and you need to meet people that are involved, and you need to shake a few hands. And so if you're interested in any of that, nothing beats networking at a conference and kind of chatting to people. And just getting your name into the mouth of some of the speakers, if that was something you were after. So like, there's just so much opportunity at that. So like, not only do you get the talks, but it's just great crack, as they say in Ireland. So it's just great fun to get among people that are interested in the same stuff as you. The chat at coffee time is my favorite thing to do, to be honest with you. And so you just meet people and you get involved. So like that's you're stronger together, really. And I love the little click. It always goes really well. Yeah, so that's what I love about it. Yeah.
If you're surrounded by like-minded people that ask the questions, and you get the answers direct from the people that matters, and I think that's what we're trying to bring over and make it stronger and get this movement sort of, let's be stronger together. So that's it.
You definitely are.
You must have something more for us.
Must I have something more for you? Oh, just putting me on the spot now. How long have I got, Retha? Is there a gong?
Yeah.
The gong is gone.
Yeah.
No, I just think it's very sad for me that Conor won't be at the summit this year, but I'm sure he'll be back next year when we're in Joburg.
Yeah.
And I have to reiterate what both of you said. It's just being in that room and listening to people that speak your weirdness, that you know, that actually says you're not that strange. It does make sense. You know? And the thing that just boggles my mind is that how we've been brainwashed that good food is bad for you.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah. It's bad for profits. That's what it is.
There I go.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing is, I think I'm going to have a T-shirt made for myself, like the In and Out girl, because I'm just in and out with these things.
Careful where you wear that, Antonette.
Listen, Conor, you've been an absolute weapon. I actually love how you can just shoot off from without a blink and just give so much knowledge and so much conviction for the topic to our listeners. And thank you so much. Really, it's been amazing. And thank you for your time. I know it's hectic. I know your life is busy. So giving us some of your time and getting our listeners to enjoy and get enough. I think there's been so many in the few words. There's been so much knowledge and ammunition for them to strengthen their belief and make them feed raw with more confidence, and make sure that there's a lot. You've given us really a lot of you've been an amazing weapon here today. Thank you so much.
It's a good point. It's a good point. You know, there's a lot of information online, and it's bamboozling for people. They've got the vets in one ear, they've got Google in the other ear, which pulls information from, you know, veterinary websites and academia. So it doesn't understand what it's spitting out at you. AI gives you the information as you want to hear it, but it has no way to discern the facts. And so that is kind of what the day is about as well. You know, it can be quite confusing. You're not quite sure, particularly if you're a vet. And you feel like, you know, it's this antagonistic thing that sometimes people feel that people are against you. And it's like, well, we're not. We just want the best for pets. And like, this is the best time to come and meet the people if you wanted to hear the very best arguments for the subject, but then come for the sake of the dogs that are in your clinic. You know, it's surely a good idea to listen to the other side, as opposed to just being told not to. You know, so I would make the leap, particularly younger vets. Please come along to that African Pet Health Summit. And just listen and just give the other side a shot. And if you don't agree with it afterwards, well, you've made a good informed decision then. But it's your duty to listen to both sides. So I really hope they do. Yeah.
Well done.
Okay.
Cool.
This has been a really, really good time. I see there's a heck of a lot of questions there. I'm trying to
I think most of them are just comments.
Just comments. Okay, no specific questions. Okay, that means
I think there was one about CBD, but I think we can deal with that one, Retha.
Okay.
CBD and pain management, but we can
love a bit of CBD. Yeah, I love a bit of CBD. Pain management is a big topic, though. Totally depends on the pain. You know, I do like pain trials. There was a great talk. There was a great group. They do a lot of gait analysis, so you can just dump loads of videos from WhatsApp into, I don't know, do you use WhatsApp a lot down there? We use it a lot up here. And you can just shoot videos to them and they have a look at your dog and they go, oh yeah, he's lame on his front left, and you wouldn't know, you know. And so they always recommend a pain trial, and same for behavior, a lot of poor behavior in inverted commas. And so if your dog is reactive, you just put them on a little bit of pain relief, a little bit of paracetamol. You're not allowed to mention that if you're a vet up here. They took that away from them because it's very, very effective pain relief and it costs you nothing in the supermarket. So we can't have that. But if you give the dog a little bit of paracetamol and his mood improves, well, then you know he's in pain. And so it doesn't tell you why he's in pain. So the whole pain trial thing is very useful for a lot of different things. But with CBD, yeah, it's wonderful. But there's a lot of different pain. These PEA is very cool at the moment. Boswellia extract. Depends on the pain. Bone on bone pain, muscle pain, fascia pain, nerve pain. What are you trying to target and why? But anyway, that the CBD thing is fab. I love a bit of CBD.
Yeah. So guys, this has been really amazing. And Antonette, who we've got next week?
No, man.
It's
Slowly. You can just edit in a big long pause. Oh, Antonette's put out.
No, we're going to have microbiome.
Microbiome stuff.
I don't
Oh,
know. I'll do a post. I can't remember, Rita.
Yeah.
My brain is shot. Connor is just, I'm just so much information.
Go back to your beautiful South African wine. It's lovely. It's Wednesday. Let's go. You're halfway through the week. Reward yourself.
God.
Yeah.
Connor, thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. See ya.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.